All right, today we're cracking the code of one of the most common, yet, let's be honest, often misunderstood tools in all of medicine, the ECG.
Yep, you've seen them a million times in movies and on TV, right? Those beeping, squiggly lines on a hospital monitor. But have you ever stopped to wonder what story they're actually telling? Well, let's decode it together. So, what exactly is an ECG? Well, to put it simply, it's just a paper recording of your heart's electrical activity. Now, it's not measuring how hard the heart is pumping, the muscle power. Instead, it's mapping out the electrical impulses that tell it to pump in the first place. Think of it like getting a peek at the heart's own internal wiring diagram.
Okay, so how does that physical thump in your chest actually turn into that specific line we see on a screen? Well, it all comes down to translating that electrical spark into a clear visual signature.
And boom, this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Check it out. On the left, you've got the heart's wiring, right? A signal starts up top and travels down through the chambers. And on the right, that's the result. That's the electrical signature of just one single beat. Every single part of that journey creates a specific piece of this wave. You've got the P wave, the QRS complex, and the T wave.
So let's break this wave down. It's really just three key events. That first little bump, that's the P wave, and it's the atria, the top chambers, squeezing. Then you get that big spike, the QRS complex. That's the really powerful contraction of the ventricles, the bottom chambers. And that final bump, the T wave, that's just the ventricles resetting, getting ready for the next beat. So atria squeeze, ventricles reset. That is literally the rhythm of life, right there on the paper.
Okay, so we get the individual pieces now. That makes sense. But how in the world do you put it all together and actually interpret the heart's language, systematically? Well, you need a checklist. It's as simple as that.
And here's a fantastic little trick to guide you. It's mnemonic. Just say this out loud. RRPWQST. See, it kind of rhymes. Super easy to remember. And trust me, it gives you the exact questions you need to ask yourself every single time you look at an ECG.
So what do all those letters even stand for? It's a simple 6-step process. Let's walk through it. The first R is for rate. Simple question. How fast is it? The second R is for rhythm. Is it steady? Then you've got P for the P wave. Key question here, is there a P wave before every single QRS? Then W is for width. How wide is that QRS complex? Q is for Q waves. And finally, you lump the last two together, ST and T for the ST segment and the T wave. See? This checklist takes a totally confusing line and turns it into a set of clear, totally answerable questions.
All right, let's tackle the first two, rate and rhythm. So look at the image on the left. Up top, you see a fast rhythm, and below it, a slow one. But here's the key. Notice how the distance between each big spike is exactly the same? That's what we call a regular rhythm. Now shift your eyes to the right. Whoa, the spikes are all over the place, right? The gaps between them are totally inconsistent. That is an irregular rhythm. It's really just a simple visual check.
Okay, now for the P wave. And folks, this is a big one. This is absolutely crucial. If you see one, and only one, of those little P waves right before every single big QRS spike, that tells you something amazing. It means the heart's natural pacemaker, what we call the sinoatrial node, is in charge and doing its job. This is what's known as a normal sinus rhythm. And believe me, it's exactly what you want to see.
But what happens when that really important P wave rule gets broken? Just look at this tracing. You can see a bunch of P waves right where those arrows are pointing. But hang on, not all of them are followed by a QRS complex. What's going on? Well, it means the signal from the atria isn't always making it through to the ventricles. It's like a communication breakdown. And in medical terms, we call this heart block.
All right, so we've got a pretty good handle on what a normal ECG looks like. Now, let's look at what happens when things go wrong. Because this is where the ECG goes from being just an interesting tracing to an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool that helps us spot the big red flags.
Okay, take a look at this one. Remember that T wave we talked about? The reset wave? It's supposed to be pointing up, but look closely at the tracings on the right here. See how the T waves are totally flipped upside down? That's called T wave inversion, and it's a classic sign of something called myocardial ischemia. And what that means, in simple terms, is that the heart muscle isn't getting enough oxygen. That's a serious warning sign.
And then there's this. And I'm telling you, this is one of the most critical, most time-sensitive patterns anyone can ever learn to recognize. See that flat line just before the T wave? That's the ST segment.
Notice how it's not on the baseline? It's floating way, way up high. That is called ST segment elevation, and it is the classic, unmistakable electrical signature of an acute heart attack happening right now.
So you see, in the end, the ECG is so much more than just a random squiggly line. It really is a story. Every single bump, every spike, every little interval, they all tell a chapter. From the basic rate and rhythm all the way to the specific shape of each wave, it gives doctors this powerful, totally non-invasive look deep inside your heart's electrical system.
You know, it's a story that's being written in real time, second by second, beat by your very own heart. It communicates everything: problems, good health, a person's history, all in one simple tracing. And that just leaves us with one final thought to ponder. What story is your heart telling?